Thank you. Morning, everyone. Morning. Hello. Firstly, thank you very much for coming to this session. My name is Warwick. I'm a director at the Education Skills Funding Agency in charge of school financial support and oversight. I've met a number of you, and it's just brilliant to see so many people at this session. And I'm really pleased to be opening it. I think we'll have a fascinating discussion, and I will hand over soon to Stephen and the panel. But I wanted to start by just saying a bit about why this topic is so important. When we think about schools and trusts, of course we talk a lot about teachers and support staff, but when we think about running schools and trusts well, making sure public money is spent well, making sure every pound goes as far as possible, making sure schools and trusts are sustainable, that falls to school leaders who are so often school business school and trust professionals. And so I was really pleased to be able to open this session. And we set out in the strategy two ambitions. So to support school business professionals to develop skills and knowledge as part of building excellent school business capability, and to support schools and academy trusts to build a rewarding and positive and inclusive culture for business professionals. To do that, we need to work with all of you, with sector groups, including ISBL, including CST, for instance, working collaboratively to make sure that happens. And if we do that, we can support existing professionals and we can attract new professionals into the system, and that's how we get a better, continuously improving system. And that is what's so important for the pupils that we serve. So in today's session, we'll hear about the role of ISBL in supporting you and lessons about what's worked well from fellow professionals. I'm just going to quickly, though, outline a number of ways that we want to try and invest in you. So firstly, we are supporting the availability of high-quality professional development opportunities for all, so we can announce funding for more training in 23-24 in areas like strategic financial planning and estate management, and making the Chief Financial Officer Mentoring Programme available through the SRM programme, and we'll set out more about the plans for all of that soon. Secondly, we are supporting the growth of specialist skills and knowledge, which will be increasingly needed in our sector. We've begun testing contract management training and working with the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply to test the suitability of their Procurement Excellence Programme for Academy Trusts. Thirdly, we are supporting professionals to self-assess their own practices for assurance and to support improvement. This is through an improved SRM self-assessment checklist, good estate management for schools, and digital standards. And then lastly, we recognise that there is a strong need for wider support. We are concerned by the numbers of school and trust business professionals who raise concerns about workload and well-being. We want to listen to the sector, identify ways to reduce burdens, simplify expectations, and ultimately better support you if we can. If you've got any questions or suggestions at all for us, any thoughts about the initiatives, any of the topics covered, please do get in touch. We will share our contact information with the post-event materials. But now I'm going to hand over to Stephen, after just saying again, a huge thank you for all you do and all you've done and continue to do for our sector. Stephen, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased to be invited to participate in this event. I think last year was an enormous success, and I think we're just building on that. And I was talking to Warwick just a moment ago, saying how the conversation around resource management has evolved over the last 12 months and continues to be an area of interest and an area which we continue to develop and hone. And central to that, I think, are the professional standards that we've been presiding over for the last 8 years, I think it is, since we launched our first iteration of professional standards. But before I get into the changes that we've made, I want to just offer a bit of context and a bit of background to how we've arrived at where we are today. For many school business professionals that have been in the system for a few years, you'll be familiar with the National College Competency Framework, which was set out during the mid-2000s, and it was a set of expectations from administrator through to executive leadership, and it focused principally on leadership behaviours and a culture of management and leadership, rather than a deep dive into the technical areas. And I think when we reflected on where we were as a sector, and the increasing complexity and the growing specialist roles within the education space, we felt it was right and appropriate that we revisited that competency framework and were a bit more granular about what we expect from colleagues. And so were born professional standards in 2015. We launched the first version of the professional standards, and we set out 5 discrete disciplines and 1 central function, which we now refer to as operational leadership. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means going forward. And then, of course, wrapped around the professional standards were a series of behaviours and competencies, and ethics was, and you know, ensuring a strong moral compass was a really important part of that. So we've moved from the 2015 version of professional standards to the 2019 version of professional standards, which was, if you like, a natural progression given where the sector was moving: more academy trusts, bigger central teams, more complexity, both in terms of what the regulator was demanding of the sector, but also other wider societal issues that we needed to address within those professional standards. Perhaps my slides are not on here. Are they? Are they not?
Have you opened up the presentation on the file?
Right, I'm learning this is my task as well. Is this the one? Yeah, here we go. Brilliant. That's it? Okay, cool. Great, yeah. Prepare to fail, fail to prepare, or whatever the saying is. So, let's talk about the revisions and why they're important. So, 2019 was the last time that we revised our professional standards, and in the 3 years between, or 4 years between 2019 and now, I think we can safely say that things are even more complex. We're still in a mixed economy system. The levels of scrutiny have undoubtedly increased, and the way we organise ourselves requires a range of skills and a range of people indeed. So we felt it was right to have a look again at our professional standards and make sure that the professional standards reflected the landscape in which we're operating. So there's a few things to say. In terms of financial assurance, if you look at the revised professional standards, you'll see a clear read across now between our professional standards and the requirements set out in the Academy Trust Handbook and all of the regulatory and compliance expectations that govern a multi-academy trust. So there's, it should be no coincidence that when you read the expectation of a CFO, that they match very clearly with those set out by the regulators. And I think that's really important, that there's no ambiguity between what's expected of you from a compliance point of view and what's expected of you professionally. But of course, not everybody in the system is a CFO, and we've always been very keen to make it very clear that we support entry level through to executive leadership, and that there is an incremental journey that you go on from that junior practitioner to executive leadership, and the standards reflect the contribution that you make both to a technical task and compliance at each point in your journey. And I should at this point say that progression doesn't have to be linear, so it's not you start as a junior practitioner and you move through the ranks to becoming Chief Operating Officer, Chief Finance Officer, or even CEO. You may decide actually you're moving in this direction, and then you move across, and you may stay doing something as a specialist for a period of time, and then you may decide actually I want to progress again. So we're not prescribing a particular accelerated pathway. We're just respecting, I think, within the professional standards that everybody's role is important, and you have to decide for yourself what function you want to focus on. There's more focus within the professional standards on resource optimisation. I think it's important we make a clarification here. Resource optimisation is not cost cutting, it's not efficiency for efficiency's sake. It's saying whatever the envelope of funding we have available to us, let's use it as effectively as we can. And that shouldn't stop us having the conversation about sufficiency. It shouldn't stop us having the conversation about an appropriate national funding formula. But what it is saying is principally our role is to do the best we can with the funds available to us today to do right by the children that we're looking after. So not to stop the conversation about funding, but to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're optimising. And that's the essence of resource optimisation, rather than efficiency or cost cutting or any other language that might be associated with resource management. Organisational design and growth, I think, and that's huge at the moment. So what structures work in what contexts? And my view is that there isn't a one size fits all. We talk a lot about a sweet spot, and the white paper itself talks about 10 as being the start of a kind of optimal size for a trust. I think we need to think carefully about what the evidence is for a particular size of trust. Certainly, economies of scale start to kick in beyond a certain size, and I think we'd all agree it's much more difficult to develop an effective central team if you're a 2-school, 3-school trust. If you're 5 or 10, then obviously you design accordingly. The growth bit, the pace of growth, I think is really important, and something that we need to consider really carefully. And again, within the standards, we talk a lot about the pace of growth, about how you need to consider the factors when you're moving from 3 to 5 to 7 to 10. Developing central teams, we've touched on, but again, it's a central feature of the new professional standards. Technical HR, again, when you're thinking about growth, when you're thinking about structures, when you're thinking about talent management, when you're thinking about becoming an employer of choice, and given that there's such a recruitment and retention challenge out there, that has to be central to everything that we all get involved in. And there are some social issues as well, which I alluded to before, which we tackle within the professional standards, EDI, sustainability, and indeed the increasing role of technology. And I think there's a session later on today about artificial intelligence and chatbots and so forth, and the role that will play in education. And as school business leaders, we need to be conscious of all of that. Very quickly, I'm acutely conscious of time. It's a tiered approach, so we absolutely respect that people are at different stages within their professional journey, and it's right that we reflect that through our professional standards. So we have 4 tiers: start at entry level and move essentially through a career journey, which looks like this: contributing to a function, supervising a function, managing a function, strategically leading. And the expectations that we set of individuals at those tiers will depend on where you are. The whole point of professional standards is to help career progression and professional development. It's incremental. The pace at which you develop as a professional is very much down to you. The extent to which you decide to, if you like, pause, consolidate and move on is very much down to you. What I would say is always have your eye on the horizon. So what's happening in your particular setting? Are you a single school moving to into a trust environment? Are you part of a trust that's growing from 3 to 5 to 10? And where do you sit within that trust? What qualifications, what experience, what credentials do you need to thrive in that environment? So again, that talks to that third point there, identifying the right training qualifications for you, for your context and for your ambition. And it helps employers, it helps trusts identify any skills gap. And I think it's a sensible thing for trusts to do, to take the professional standards and have a look at where there are gaps, where there's vulnerability, and how we plug any knowledge and skills gap that may exist as a consequence of that self-assessment. Very quickly, certification. We have to date we have pushed out professional standards and allowed the sector to mark their own homework, if you like. So you look at the professional standards, you make a judgment on on where you sit within the professional standards, and then as a consequence you tell your employer, you tell colleagues that you are tier 3 or tier 2 or tier 4. What we're moving towards now is a validation of that claim. So we are suggesting that if you want formal certification against any level within the standards, you can present evidence to the institute, you can get employer endorsement, and as a consequence you will receive a certificate for that claim that you make. So it makes it real, it makes it credible, and it brings the employer into the conversation, which is really, really important. Finally, it's designed to support more meaningful employer engagement, as I just said. It should assist in the recruitment process. It aids the design of job descriptions and job specifications, and it should help with the benchmarking of pay. I'll leave it there. If you want further information, there's some contact details and a link to our website. The document goes live today. Anybody who's a member of the Institute will receive an exclusive hard copy. If you want more information about how to navigate your way through the professional standards, then contact Lee Herridge, who's our Head of Professional Development, otherwise visit the website. Thank you very much, and apologies, that was quite a quick canter through quite a complicated document. Thanks a lot. So we're just going to go straight into the panel discussion. Is that okay? Okay, just going to catch my breath. So I'm joined by Debbie Beezer and Nina Siddle. Both have been really fantastic ambassadors for school business leadership, and they're here today to share some insights and work through some of the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. Do you want to say just a couple of words about your own particular settings before we get into the discussion? Debbie, if you want to talk about your setting and then we'll move to Nina, and then we'll work through some of the questions.
Yes, of course. So I'm Debbie Beezer. I'm a school business leader at the moment of a primary school, Blackhorse Primary School, just outside of Bristol, as you can tell by my accent. I'm also the chair and founder of the South Gloucestershire School Business Leader Group, which for all my sins I started back in 2017 because I feel really passionate about this role and I wanted to bring people together. And at the moment, my school, along with 12 others, are on an academisation journey for September this year. So I'll be able to tell you about how the professional standards have really sort of helped me with that journey.
Thanks, Debbie. Nina.
Yeah, so I'm the CFO of Humber Education Trust, which is based across Hull and North East Lincolnshire. We started off with 6 schools, then 11, now 17, and that started in September 17, so it's moved quite quickly. It's primaries and specials, so no secondaries. And we've currently got about another 3 schools showing an interest in joining and building a free school as well, so it's really busy. So in terms of other colleagues that are sitting in that kind of environment, I think you mentioned the word pace earlier on. That's a really big deal currently for us, and managing that and managing the constant churn and change that we have to have with our central team particularly, and how we support our schools, what business management looks like. So that's where we sit at the minute in the role that I'm in. I'm also chair of something called ISBL, which is Humber and East Yorkshire School Business Leaders, which has been around now for about 4 or 5 years, got about 80 members, again across Hull, East Riding and North East Lincolnshire, and that's still sort of successfully moving forward.
Thanks very much. So, first question, Debbie, if I may, how have you been able to improve the recognition of school business professional roles, and in particular, how have you used professional standards to frame that or to underpin that recognition and that status?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to me. Something I sort of find and hear through my group all the time is that recognition of the role. So for me, it was important I used the ISBL standards, first of all, to use them as my own appraisal. And that was a massive step for me, because my head teacher all of a sudden really started to understand what this role was and could be, and how I could be developed to support what the school needed, and that started a whole journey for me. I was then able to use the standards to create a completely new job description that didn't exist in our county to upgrade the role. And so it was really pivotal in getting that recognition, and that's then sort of spread, across other schools and because of my group, and so it's really improving it across the trust and across county. And so I've been invited to sit on recruitment panels and things like that for other schools that are recruiting SBMs, because they understand that we have the knowledge to be able to help them and support them and get what they need in the school. So the ISBL standards were really important in that they helped me write the job description, and they helped with the appraisal process as well too. And then obviously for me growing, it then enabled me to grow my team, and that's been a really exciting journey, and I've seen my team around me start to grow as well, and that's been really lovely.
Thanks, Debbie. And just segueing from there, Nina, so just picking up on that professional development conversation, so when it comes to setting objectives, self-assessment tools, performance reviews, how do you use the professional standards to underpin that whole process?
Yeah, so performance management for all the business managers across our trust, I'm quite definite about the fact that when we're target setting, it shouldn't just be, this is one job for you this year, this is another thing we need you to do this year, because I think you can lose your way with that. I think that's fine, but actually someone can do really well at doing some tasks, but are they actually working to that job description? And I think that's far more important, because they could do a really good job of 2 or 3 things, but there could be other elements of their role that isn't going so well, and that needs supporting and that needs developing. So the main objective is always set around compliance, There's an awful lot of compliance threaded into our JDs. Our JDs were rewritten 2 years ago, starting from the framework, from the standards. Our business managers cross over tier 2 and tier 3. So not everybody meets every little bit of it. So what we do is we use those gaps, if you like, to discuss where their personal development might move. So within the performance review, there's a big section on compliance. We talk through that. That never changes. It's always there, constant, and we review that 6 monthly and annually. There's usually a school level objective, which is linked into the school improvement plan and something very specific for that school. But then they have their personal objective, which is all around where they are in their role, where do they see themselves. That's brilliant for us in terms of succession planning, because we can see where people's strengths lie, which nobody meets everything in here. Everybody has strengths in different places, so it's about being able to identify what they are, where can we use those later down the line. And now as a trust that's growing and looking at how we're supporting specialist roles, some people feel they want to move into specialism, so that allows us those conversations. So yeah, our performance management has moved completely away from being a task-driven set of objectives to something that's much more holistic around the job description. Also, not wanting to be negative about it, but if there are performance issues, that helps you much more. It's much more helpful because you're looking at the job in the whole rather than just snapshots of it.
Yeah, no, really helpful. And Debbie, just turning to the role of professional standards in recruitment and, if you like, talent management. How does that work in your environment?
It really helps break down and helps you understand obviously what you're going to need from those people that you employ, and because you may not have specialists, or you may be more generalist. Do you want to employ a more specialist role? Do you want a more generalist role? It really helps you understand what you need to fit the needs of your school. So it's, you know, we really tie it into our sort of strategic planning or our school development plan. You know, where's our school going? What are we going to be doing? Are we going to be academising, you know, or are you going to be growing? What are we going to need? So there's a really useful tool to help you understand what you're going to need from that role, so that you're going to be able to draw up your adverts, and recruit those people that you need. And I think when you employ someone and you're very clear about what you want, it makes it so much easier to make them part of that team. I did that with one of my admin assistants. She really appreciated the fact that it was just so clear about what her role was, and that it was absolutely clear about what support she needed and where the weaknesses were and everything. So I think it's a really useful tool for that. Yeah.
Okay, again, really helpful. And so this question is to both of you. We'll come to Nina first and then Debbie, but it's the same question. We know that there is a supply crisis, if you like, for school business professionals, and in particular for CFOs. So there's high demand, and the pipeline of candidates to fulfil those roles is limited. And some of it is to do with capability and competency and the credentials that people have, and part of it is to do with making the role attractive. What can sector bodies like the Institute do better to improve that situation? Indeed, how can professional standards aid that conversation?
I think it depends if you're talking about external to the sector. You know, there are a lot of people out there that really don't understand anything about what we do. Mm-hmm. I think if you're in education, you probably do, or at least know something about it, and you know where to go to find out more about it. But if you're not in the education sector, I think that's where it needs to go. I mean, you know, how big a profile has it got in universities? How big a profile has it got as a general career pathway for students leaving university, for example, that kind of thing? They're the people we need in. I mean, I'm really passionate at the moment of looking at the younger people in our trust, seeing where they can go. I'm not going to be there for forever, and my focus now isn't really about me anymore. It's more about what I'm doing with those people, and if I can leave my career having brought them through something, then I've done a good job as far as I'm concerned. But we need people into the sector first in order to understand that that's a possibility.
Yeah, no. So, and I think in terms of a talent pipeline, I think you're absolutely right that we need to do more with young people. We need to do more with universities, probably even starting at school. Actually, sort of ingraining into the consciousness of young people that this is a really exciting career. But Debbie, in terms of there is a talent pipeline in terms of people coming in externally or young people training to be school business leaders. But we shouldn't forget that there are circa 35,000 school business professionals already in the system that can still add value.
Yeah.
So what can we do differently to make sure that cadre of professionals are equipped to deal with the complexity that's coming at them?
Yeah, and that's what I see across my group as well, you know, that sometimes people have an idea about what they want to do, but they don't know how to get there or what they're going to need, or they think that they may have an understanding that their school may be on a journey, but they don't really know what they're going to need. And so ISBL, through the qualifications, which is a route that I took because I had an idea that academisation was coming down the road, so I was able to take on those qualifications to upskill myself because that's what I wanted to do. And I think that the standards in ISBL will help or do help you understand perhaps what you're going to need and what might be out there, you know, that if you did want to specialise in HR, really what would that look like at that level, and to just understand it better and think, yeah, that's really is a journey that I'd like to take. And I think through our networks and our groups, there are really an ISBL and membership of ISBL, because you meet some great professionals through there that are just a font of knowledge that can just really help shape you and direct you and lead you. I think it's really important, and being a fellow of ISBL and meeting those people that have really made that sort of significant contribution to the profession are just an amazing source of resource for me as well. So yeah, through that as well.
Yeah, kind words. Thank you. I don't know how are we for time? I mean, did you want to do any Q&A or?
Take a couple of questions from the rest, only for 2 minutes, so maybe if you take 2 questions once.
Yeah, brilliant. So have we got any questions at all? Got time for a couple of questions if anybody's got anything they'd like to ask panel colleagues or indeed me. Anything from anybody? This lady at the front. Hi. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So obviously we're all very aware of the as school business professionals who work alongside the teaching profession, and what happens year on year is the pay increases for our SLT counterparts, and our sales gets wider and wider and wider. So how can we use the tools to be able to show our worth, that our increments year on year are going to match our counterparts on SLT?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, because I know that's something that...
No, that's fine. I think that's a live and really important topic for all school business professionals. So I've got a very straightforward view on this, and that is that pay should be commensurate with qualifications, accountability, and experience, and shouldn't be there shouldn't be a distinction between whether you're an education leader of pedagogy or an education leader of business and finance and ops. So I don't think there should be any gaps at all. How we get to a framework, and some of you will know that the Institute have been looking at how we address that, and we're going to be consulting wider in the future. And by the way, we're not imposing or prescribing or any of that, but we're just suggesting that there are a number of factors that leaders should think about when they're determining the pay of school business professionals. The other thing to say very quickly is I understand that it's challenging. In the academy world, there is no impediment to paying a school business professional properly. For community schools, it's a bit more complicated because of job evaluation and equal pay and all the rest of it. But if you've got a brave governing body, the art of the possible is there, and we can show you case studies where that's happened. I think it will be very helpful to the sector if we set out those expectations very clearly, and we start talking about accountability, experience, and credentials as the benchmark, not whether you're an SBP or a head teacher or a head of science or whatever else. And I think that for far too long has been this strange kind of inequity and almost two-tier system. So I'm with you, is what I'm saying, and there's important work to be done. We're out of time, are we?
Yeah, we are. We'll be back in this room in 8 minutes' time for a recorded panel discussion on the school business professional development. So please do feel free to join that one too if you would like to.